dau cuvântul domnului Buisman de la Ambasada Olandei la București. Vă rog.
Mulțumesc și bună ziua. I have to apologize. I don't speak Romanian, so I have to do my speech in English. First of all, I would like to mention that I've noted two important things this morning. First of all is that I think everybody in this room agrees that crime should not pay, and you have to get the assets of the convicted people, and a punishment in jail is not enough. Second of all, what I noted is that also in Romania, a lot of legislation is already in place. So in my presentation, actually, I would like to focus on the Dutch situation, on two things. First of all, that making legislation and implementing it is a continuous process. And second of all, you have to do it with a coherent approach. At least that's what we try to do in the Netherlands. Let me first start with some figures. Extended confiscation is, of course, part of a bigger complex of seizing criminal assets. In the Netherlands, in 2011, a total of 4.5 billion euros was recovered from illegal money. However, the biggest part of this is actually from fiscal law, and this is from crime, fiscal crime, but also simple things as mistakes by the tax services or by citizens. So that's a small note. The second part of 270 million was collected from administrative fines. So that's in the area of social security, collection of premiums, etc. And the third part is 190 million euros. That's specifically aimed at criminal law. So if you look at the bigger picture, actually the biggest numbers are in the fiscal law. But today we are here for the extended confiscation. As I said before, the main motivation is actually to hit the criminals where it hurts most, and that's in the wallets. Dutch confiscation legislation has actually existed since 1983 and has developed ever since. In general, you could say it has great similarities to Romanian situation. First of all, there's confiscation of criminal assets directly coming from the crime. Second, there is extended confiscation, and to make sure that during the trial, criminals don't extract their assets to another country or hide it on another way, there is the freezing of assets. If after the punishment there's still some proof or suspicion of criminal assets, there's a possibility of criminal execution investigation. So that's actually after all this already took place. Like I said, it's a continuous development. I would like to mention two examples with this. First of all, the distinction between confiscation of criminal assets and extended confiscation. Only in 1993 it was determined to have a strict line between them in order to keep things very clear. Only in practice it seemed that it was quite difficult actually to make this distinction. So where do you have criminal assets and where is it the extended assets? So actually only in 2011 they kind of changed it back to give prosecutors more room in the definition of criminal assets, making the procedures actually a lot more easy. The second example that I would like to mention is that a criminal needs to be convicted for one crime. For example, if a burglar is convicted for one burglary and it's assumable that he is also guilty for burglary 3 other ones, it's also possible to have extended confiscation on those crimes as well. If we look at future issues, because it's never actually finished, a discussion in the Netherlands is the question of burden of proof, which is also scheduled for today's meeting. In practice, it's the jurisdiction that kind of defines it. And sometimes it's more directed at the prosecutor, and sometimes it's more at the defendant. But there is no clear definition yet in the law. The second challenge is, of course, I think also mentioned today, is the cross-border cases, which are just very complicated. When we look at implementation, I could say it's kind of learning by doing. You can have all the legislation ready, but you kind of just have to do it. In the Netherlands, we have also a specific agency for that. It's called the Criminal Assets Deprivation Bureau, or in Dutch we would say BOOM. It employs 85 people preparing specifically confiscation cases. In 2011, they collected 50 million euros, and in 2003, when they started, it was only 10 million euros. So there's definitely a growth in that. What is really important is commitment. I think it was mentioned here before as well. Everybody has to believe in it and has to kind of participate in it. So in the Netherlands, they invested in creating awareness by training and also, more importantly, just building up experience, bringing forward cases and cases and cases until definitions are more clear and you get more successful. The last thing that I would like to mention is that the increased complexity of cases not only demands people to look at extended confiscation in criminal law, but also have a wider approach. So in the Netherlands, they have taken several measures in that. Legal measures, actually to prevent people to start over again after a conviction. So after a criminal conviction, a person should not be able to start a business again, for example. Or the Chamber of Commerce has to be alerted when a convicted criminal wants to start over again and warn all the agencies that are involved. So that's the public prosecutors, but also the tax services. Besides that, or in addition to that, there's a lot of investment in cooperation between institutions. So that's between the public prosecutors and the fiscal services, the tax services mainly, because I think my American colleague also demonstrated it. It's quite a complicated way to get someone. And sometimes it's just easier to get the money through another way, which can be tax law, which is much more simple. So it happens increasingly, and as you can see from the numbers, it's also quite successful. Other examples are intervention teams existing of the public prosecutors, but also other more administrative institutions, in a way to get more helicopter view of what's going on around a person, and in that way kind of together determine which instrument is most practical. So let me conclude now actually. I would like to end where I started. Also in the Netherlands, it's a continuous process of adjusting legislation and also implementation. And it's really necessary to have a coherent approach to be more successful. So thank you very much for your attention.
Mulțumim și noi.